welcome back. Happy Thursday. Ashley and Natasha here. We are going to be talking about proposals this evening and show you some really cool stuff. I
Yes.
think, and for anyone who is in our audience that might not know, NVS Strategic Solutions writes proposals. So I thought that there would be nobody better to lead this episode and learn from the expert, sort of for those of you who might be joining us that are just getting started in services contracting, who this is probably not as relevant for are product suppliers, those of you who are just submitting quotes. So with that said, I'll go ahead and let you take it away.
Yeah, thank you. I think everybody has always kind of, reached out and asked, how do I write a proposal? I've heard that from everyone. And it doesn't have to be that difficult. When I first got into proposal writing, I kind of took all the information I had learned in college and high school and kind of used a lot of common sense because essentially it is what it is. It's a proposal, it's a business plan. It's you pretty much answering all the questions that are asked in the solicitation and ultimately why you're the best fit for the job. Over time, I've learned to take courses and I've learned to get certified and I've also know that I have a certain set of skill sets, but there are some that are better than me. So I've surrounded myself with really, really good proposal writers. I'll show you two examples of what proposals look like. One is for a carpet and flooring contract as a subcontractor to a prime. And the other one is a contract solicitation proposal for janitorial. And I can kind of just give you an idea of what the components put together essentially make a proposal. And so I will share my screen.
Format's a big one, I noticed. And a lot of folks I noticed try to overcomplicate it, right? They always
Yeah, you don't
want
have
to like
to.
reinvent the wheel. And really, the proposal is going to dictate exactly what your section should be. So this is going to be interesting to kind of follow along. And I'm sure a lot of you will realize, wow, I've been making this a little harder than it is.
And most of the time, I just want to make everyone aware, like most of the time, the solicitation will tell you exactly what they're looking for. Granted, it gives you, performance of work statement, it gives you the scope of work and, all the, the reps and certs, but essentially it'll also tell you how many pages. Sometimes it'll tell you down to what font they want you to use and what size. They'll tell you the questions that they want you to answer and how much past performance they want to see and what they want to see in that, how to price it, even if they want schedules or things like that. So they'll give you a rough draft of what they want that proposal to look like. So please, pay attention to that because obviously, you want to be compliant, you want to be able to provide all that information, but ultimately, you also want to put your best foot forward. Now, I am huge on your cover letter. I'm huge on colors. I'm huge on, this is essentially your first foot forward with your client, right? This is the first time they're meeting you. Hopefully not. Hopefully you've contacted them prior to the proposal. But if not, if you're just putting in a proposal, this is your first time introducing your company. So you want it to be super, super beneficial and you want it to stand out. Just think about how a contracting officer is reading the same proposal from multitude of companies. So you want yours to stand out. And with that, there's a lot of technical components, but there are ways to stand out. And in order to do that, you can utilize graphics, you can utilize charts, you can utilize your cover letter, and there's plenty options for color and, kind of just making it look nice and even alongside your colors in your logo and so forth. So that kind of formatting really does help. Here we have a cover letter for a proposal for a solicitation for the FAA. This was a company that had their 8A. We just did, some generic content, who the proposal is for. And most of the time, the government will tell you what they want in the cover letter. Obviously, the pictures are optional, but it makes it stand out. Essentially, you want to have some company information, your UEI, your NICS codes, certifications, your website, all that good information to make it super easy for your customer to find you. Here we do a little synopsis, an introduction essentially of your company to the customer. Then we kind of go in with mission and values, introducing, who you are as a company, what your mission statement is, what your core values are. We follow it with understanding and approach. So essentially what this is we've read the scope of work, we understand, and this is how we intend to approach it. This is our technical approach. This is how we intend to do the work. Why are we the best fit for the job? How we intend to do it. That usually kind of is a segue into how we intend to manage this contract if we are awarded it, what our staffing plan looks like, our transition plan, and ultimately we start to get into answering some of the questions that are on the solicitation within, the components of the proposal. So there was a section where it said evaluation and selection. How do you evaluate yourself? What makes you the best fit for the selection? They asked for a performance plan, a staffing plan. So those are the things that we provided based on what they requested. So it's kind of a no-brainer. It makes it super easy if we just follow what they're asking for. And of course, if you don't have a staffing plan, you can create one. Just remember when you're thinking about staffing, like our last time we discussed this in our last podcast, it was essentially who do we need to perform the work? How are we going to get it done? How much are they going to cost? All those things create a basis of estimate. And these are the things that we're thinking about as we're writing the proposal. It's essentially your business plan that if you were given the work, how are you going to perform it? Here we have, we're going to create a staffing plan. We're going to hire a project manager. We're going to have assistant managers. We're going to have supervisors, and we're going to have quality control. They ask about employment reports for veterans. We put that in there. No brainers. Employment eligibility verifications, we're essentially just saying that we're going to do a 90-day transition plan. We're totally going to follow those compliant rules, and we're going to, make sure everyone's e-verified. As we're going through the sections, we are trying to make sure that we are answering and, reconfirming with the government that we understand everything that we're reading, line item by line item, and that this is how we intend to perform the work. Again, training, we intend to train, records management, everything that is in the proposal we are responding to. Everything that's, requested in solicitation. Cleaning services, how do we intend to clean? The hours that are worked. And so then, you can kind of see figures and graphs and Excel sheets and things of that we kind of input in there just to change the monotony of just not having verbiage constantly. You want to add some pictures, you want to add some graphs in there, just kind of break up the monotony of it all. So here we have a schedule, a proposed schedule for each task for the government. We're essentially letting them know how we intend to clean the facility and manage it. And as you can see, it was a very large schedule. We created a regularly scheduled cleaning service, and then we added some things like pest control services at no extra cost to create an advantage. These are kind of ways that you can create a proposal, putting some bullet points, putting some schedules, putting some graphs. You can use pictures. There's plenty of, places where you can just get some like basic photos just to insert into your Word, just to make it stand out and pop. But ultimately, when it comes to compliance, it's really following every single response and answering the solicitation. I will go forward on this. And then, of course, at the end, usually we end with experience and past performance. So what makes this relevant is, have you done this work before? Who have you done it with? How much was it? Was the scale and the scope similar to what you're bidding on now? And so that's kind of how we provide that information. And so that is essentially what a proposal looks like. Just off a reference, here's another one. Again, just a cover page for flooring, basic table of contents, an introduction of the company, of the CEO, saying how we're interested in providing this service and super excited that we were able to propose and look forward to working with you if given the opportunity. Some attributes, values, again, mission statement, again, reintroducing yourself to the prime, letting them know that you're interested in the work and who you are and why you are the best fit for the job. And again, just responding to every single part of that solicitation. What's our approach? What's our staffing plan? What's our quality assurance? It's all pretty much the same components. Sometimes it varies a little bit, but it's all pretty much the same. They all want to know how you're going to manage the project, how you're going to staff it, what your risk is, what's your schedule, and then of course at the very, very end, what your cost is. So then you can kind of come up with project timelines, which essentially will help you in creating the pricing component. So in that, we kind of create labor categories, hours, level of effort, but that's a whole nother class.
I love what
So
you did there with the images and the graphics. And that is one thing that was recommended in some training that I took in regards to creating proposal graphics for readability and impact. And it's
yeah,
actually one of the value adds that I teach in my capability statement course. There is great opportunity in custom creating graphics, whether it's a table like you see on the screen like that completely looks like a custom Gantt chart. And think about if you're reading this, guys, like this individual has clearly thought out every single step of the project. So if I'm responding to this opportunity and I don't have any of these things yet, I'm responding because I have the ability to acquire these things. So that project manager may not be on my staff yet, but I have still done my research. I know roundabout what I'm going to pay for that project manager. I've probably interviewed a couple. Maybe I've even given an offer contingent on the award to that project manager. When I
yep.
get the award, the hiring process starts, right? So you're growing your team because you got the contract, then
And
essentially.
you can
So
create that staffing plan as you're going through it. You start coming up with the idea of everyone that you want to hire. Sometimes in a solicitation, they'll tell you who your key personnel is. They'll tell you, I want a deputy manager, I want, this manager, I want this, assistant. They'll give you that, but sometimes they don't. And it's up to you to know your, industry and have that subject matter expertise to know who you need to put on the job, right? But ultimately, when you're creating a staffing plan, some of the ways that I like to go about it is putting in who that role, what that role is, what their responsibility in regards to the scope of work, and what their authority is. What are they in control of? And then if you have resumes, you can put in who you intend to propose, because sometimes they'll want to see the resume to your key personnel, especially your project managers. They usually want to see that. And sometimes they'll even ask for a letter of commitment. So you can put in, the name, you can put in their resume. I mean, the government get really excited if they find a really good resume and they want to work with that individual. That could be literally the thing that pulls you apart from your competition. So definitely, a detailed staffing plan is super helpful. And for this project timeline, I mean, not everyone is a pro at Excel, right? So fun little cheat ways, smart sheets. They give you like 14 days free. Smart sheets. I literally took, this is what the customer gave me. Phase one, pre-installation, it's going to take a week. These are the things that we're going to do. Cool. I was like, I don't want to keep looking at bullet points. We need to break up the monotony of this, right? We need to look, and honestly, visually, this looks more appealing. So we took this and we went to smartsheets.com, and I'll just take you with me just for fun. And I'm not a
go to Use
pro.
Monday for that. You have that
Get
ability
it, girl.
already.
You know what?
I got you. I got
Little Monday.com plugins.
you.
I don't know how to use Monday.com yet.
You
I learned
will.
that you gotta
You
teach.
will. We're gonna
This
do a couple videos on that eventually.
so Smart Sheets, I was able to take a project dashboard, and I just took all the information they gave me, and I said, all right, cool. This is your phases, right? Like this is gonna take a week. I just was like, let's assume you get the contract March 1st. It's gonna take a week, right? End dates, start date, end dates. This can go even as far as if you have people and resources in it and you know how much you're gonna pay them hourly, you can put that in and it tells you how much everything's gonna cost you, but we won't go that far. But you can put these phases in here and it automatically creates that chart for you. So now the customer gets to see the timeline. Okay, within this phase, this is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. It just adds more scope and scalability in regards to looking at the schedule. And this essentially will help you kind of put in your mind, okay, while we're doing that work, this is how much it's also going to cost. This is how much you're probably going to be billing each month based on the level of effort of each week of what the work you're putting in. So it helps quite a bit. So from just a little list of, and you can see it's not that detailed, just from a little list, we created a whole spreadsheet. And all I did was literally take a snapshot of it and put it in the proposal. But this was a winning proposal. Ultimately they won 6 million from this. So nonetheless, it is, it's the little things that really do like make it stand out. It's not just the verbiage. It's really about the work you put into your proposal. Again, it's like your resume, it's like your interview. You want to put your best foot forward. So have fun,
Direct reflection
right? Like you just have
of how
fun with
good
it.
you are at what you do and how much
Yeah.
you take in your work. And that comes off. That comes off. Especially when it's your first impression. If you don't know the agency, if you've never met with a customer, you're already at somewhat of a disadvantage. Like, let's be
Right.
realistic. So you really have to nail the offer,
You do.
and that it looks very professional, it's well put together, it's well thought out, and that's demonstrated very clearly. I was very impressed even with the staffing plan. Looks good.
So when you do this, just remember that there is no wrong way. There are some basic things that you want to follow, but have fun with it. I know like proposal writing sounds boring and everybody wants to like give that away. I don't like writing. You're writing about your own company. You're not writing about somebody else's company. So, this is I have a passion for writing and I'm writing about other people's companies. But if you're writing about your own, only you know your why. Only you know what makes you the best at what you do. So write about it. And honestly, as you're doing these proposals, you'll understand that your niche doesn't change very often, or at least it shouldn't. So most of this is cookie cutter. You're going to use the same template constantly. And the only things, there are going to be a little tweaks here and there based on the solicitation and the requirements, but ultimately it's the same thing. Do it your first time, give it a shot. We'd love to see it. And we're happy to like take a look at it and give some pointers, but this is your company. Have some fun with it and essentially show the government who you are and what makes you great. And if you can give a really good proposal, it just shows how good of a project manager you are, how prepared, how much of a good business owner you are, and why you deserve the job. And if you put your best foot forward in just something as simplistic as this, there's no end to what you possibly can do. And that's the way the contracting officer will see it. The best work you can possibly put. They know that you can obviously do the contract as well with the best foot forward as well. So it's just your good foot forward and essentially your best first impression.
Very much so. And notice like that image that was just on the screen, that is an actual picture of the actual work. It wasn't just something random grabbed off the internet. So for those of you who might be partnering with someone else to submit a proposal, this is a great example of how intimately you are going to need to know the team that you are working with. Whether you're calling for 3 quotes and picking the best one, or whether you're doing your due diligence and evaluating your subcontractors, because the quality of work that they do is going to be a direct reflection on your brand. So
Yes.
I always recommend not taking the hasty approach. If you know you're bidding in janitorial, spend some time vetting those that you're going to use on your contracts and make sure they make you look good. Make sure
Yes.
they make you look good, because you are going to be who the government remembers, not
Hmm.
that sub.
Yep. Ultimately, yes. And we've
And
had
that
a
could
lot
go
of
either
people
way.
that do that. They go and they quickly find whoever can do the work. They price it in. They don't know any better. And then the sub fails horribly or just doesn't do the work. And then you're
Prime
out.
doesn't manage the sub. They're not in
Mhm.
compliance with the contract because there weren't clauses flowed down that should have been flowed down because the prime didn't really know any better.
Didn't do a subcontracting plan, teaming agreement, nothing. And then, all of that eats into your risk. You have to
Which
think you
eventually
have to
eats
put
into your
this.
profit.
It
Yeah.
does. It really does. I've had people go into the negatives. They go and they're like, I want 100,000. And then their sub just failed at deliverables. And now they're quickly trying to find another sub because they still have to perform the work. And then they find a sub that's more expensive than the first sub and automatically eats into their profit margins. So this happens quite often. So just, be conscientious. That's why vendor management and vetting your vendors is super, super important.
I think that quality control process, being a business owner in general, um, we tend to want a government contract so badly that we skip over like the general business principles and sort of setting up our internal infrastructure to sort of mitigate that risk in advance.
Yeah.
I know when I vet subs, if anybody fills out an application to work with me, there's certain criterias that if exists or doesn't exist in some circumstances, it'll automatically decline them, send them a very polite, thank you for your interest in doing business with us. At this time, we're not able to move forward. But however you do it,
Mm-hmm.
have that sort of line of protection. This is your brand. And if you're in this for the long haul, like, I mean, we clearly are,
Yeah.
um, that could either come back to help you or to hurt you.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people focus on that top line and it's always a reminder that, oh, it's 1 million, oh, it's 5 million, it's 100 million, but it's great. But it doesn't matter if you take home zero. If you made $0 in that million, then you didn't really make any money.
You didn't make
What
any
is the
money.
purpose? What is the
Yeah.
point?
And if we're not
You're
making a
not a,
profit, why are we doing this?
yeah,
What,
like there's just
you know?
just to say it's 1 million. So
Yeah.
it's think about, all the things, all the compliance, all the risks, all the things that, are required of you in order to do the job and think about it clearly. Don't just, go in it with the sales mind that I'll just do anything for a contract, which I see quite often. Think about all the cost, all the risk, because ultimately it's on you. And, sometimes you only get one shot. In a commercial environment, you can probably mess up a couple times and, recover. But in the government, not so much. Your CPAR
CPARS
rate,
isn't like a Google review.
yeah, it's like, if you mess up, it's a very tight-knit community. They'll know, and they just won't use you anymore. And then you just have to go elsewhere. So, just be conscientious of that and put your best foot forward in everything that you do.
Highly agree. And I like what you did in that proposal example too. That's something that we didn't really talk a whole lot about, but what you saw, with the no additional cost pest control, that's kind of an example of ghosting your competition. None of you have ever heard that term. It's not my term, it's Josh Frank's term.
Yeah.
And he teaches it very, very well. Essentially, what you're doing is you are providing additional value. You
Mhm.
are bringing something more to the table that does speak to your quality. Um, and that can be, especially when, say, staff isn't dictated
Mhm.
and you have a staffing plan, that in itself could be what sets you apart from someone else, the way that you've structured the staff or the quality control. So, think through all the way. Envision yourself going to the job. What's it going to take to do the work?
Mhm.
And just start listing, start pricing, and it will all come together for you. Everything that you need to know is in the solicitation.
Yep.
And if it's not, I would highly encourage you to remove the ambiguity during the Q&A phase. I had a couple clients actually just last week who brought opportunities to me. Going through the opportunities, there were some questions. And once you do this a few times, you'll be able to tell when a government human makes this mistake too, right? Because we're all human. Sometimes there's a boilerplate clause in there that shouldn't be in there, the wrong type of contract, and you'll get used to kind of picking these things out. Remove the ambiguity in the Q&A phase. And if there's too much ambiguity and it's past the Q&A phase, guys, there's going to be more opportunities. Just move on to the next one. It's not worth the risks associated with saying you can do something under ambiguous terms and then it turning out to be something else, because that will kind of come back on you too. There's going to be another contract, I assure you. Just let it go, focus on the next one.
Yeah, and I think it goes into that P win. If you feel that you're confident that you can win this and that you're the best person for the job and you meet the criteria, then have at it. If not, save your time and your money and go elsewhere. There's going to be a million opportunities. There's always a bunch of them every day.
Every day. I mean, tens of thousands of opportunities
Oh,
on SAM all the time at any given time.
yeah.
The earlier you engage, the better your chances, the earlier in the procurement cycle that is. So definitely don't discount your RFIs, your source of sought notices.
Oh, yeah.
Those often lead to proposals that you had the ability to influence. So when you
Hmm.
see that solicitation on SAM that, has that 3-day turnaround time, has some sort of weird requirements that make it look like it was written for someone else, it's because
They
it
ghosted.
was. Probably was. They ghosted.
They go.
So do yourself a favor. Don't try to jam a square peg in a round hole. Just make sure you get in there earlier next time and throw your hat in the ring, essentially, because that'll be the way that you get the job done. Okay, we are out of time this evening. So I thank you guys, those of you who joined us live, those of you who might be watching us on demand later. I did pop some links in the chat to Smartsheet and free trial for Monday.com if you wanted to create yourself a Gantt chart graphic for your next proposal. So thank you for joining us again, and we will see you next week, same time, same place. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.